Michelle, do you want to introduce, go ahead and start our demo artist and see if William is ready to go?
Sure, I can try here. We've got William Kalwick, who's a fabulous oil painter. So, William, are you ready for us?
I'm ready.
I'll let you do your own. Tell us about yourself, please.
Okay. First of all, can you see my easel, my painting?
Yes,
my
I understand.
Okay. All right. Wasn't sure. I've never done this before, so I hope I've got it set up correctly.
Let me stop for 1 second. If you're not familiar with putting just him on the screen, put your cursor over his photo and right click, and it'll say pin video, and click on that, and he'll just put him on the screen and nobody else except for little boxes. Okay, I'm sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Okay, so now can you all see better?
Yes.
Fine.
Okay, good. So, wow, I have to talk about myself. I didn't realize I was doing that. Thought I was just going to paint. So yeah, I guess concerning landscapes and portraits, I prefer to paint from life. And what I'm going to be working on today is just a snapshot that I saw along the highway, and there was too much traffic there for me to paint it, but I thought it was really nice, and I said, well, maybe I can use this in the future for something. And so that's the photo I'm going to be working on today, working from today. So I don't know if you all can see the photo. I think Michelle sent it out, but I'm working from an iPad, not from a photograph. So why don't I just get started with the demo, because that's what you all
sounds like. That sounds great. And the photo can be seen also on the class website.
Yeah, so in case you want to look and see what I'm working on. And well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the photo and how to choose a subject matter to paint and why I chose this particular photo to paint from. And because that's real important. A lot of times when I'm teaching a workshop, especially if it's a landscape workshop, it's a plein air workshop, I noticed that folks have trouble choosing what to paint. They're overwhelmed by a lot of things going on outside, and they like the scene, but they're not really sure what to focus in on. And really, you have to find a focal point to your painting and center the rest of the painting towards that. So in other words, the focal point, you're going to finish just a little bit more, maybe have more detail in that, and then the outer portions of the painting can have less detail. So the viewer's attention goes towards an area that's more finished. So you want the viewer to stay in the center of the painting. So that's where you're going to have the most contrast. And it would be, so you would imagine this in thirds going both ways. And so you try to have everything of interest in this section right here of the painting. You could have stuff off to the side, but you don't want the eye to go off to the side. And composition is really important when you're doing a painting, because it could, even if painting's well painted, if it's not a good composition, it's just not going to work. And so, yeah, that's real important. And it takes a while. Some people have just this talent for finding compositions, and other folks struggle with it. But the more you paint and the more you think about what you're painting and what you want to focus on, I think you'll have more success. So let me get my image up here on my iPad. And so if you all have seen the image, it's just a red barn and with a white country house next to it. And it was in the afternoon sun was hitting the barn and the house. And as I was driving by, and I turned around, went back to photograph it. But what's nice about it is you have, especially with landscape, there's a lot of green. And with this particular, with the red barn, red and green are complementary colors, so they really work well together. And the other thing that's nice about this particular composition is the country house. It's painted white. It kind of balances out the red barn. So it's not just a red barn off to one side, which would be right about here, but you have this white house over here, which kind of balance each other out and also create a very strong focal point in the middle portion of the painting, even though neither one are exactly in the middle. So the first thing I'm going to do is
William, could
Yeah.
you, for those that haven't seen it, could you hold your iPad up to your camera so they might pull it in some? Yeah, there we go.
Can you all see that?
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
So
Thank you.
Okay, I didn't know if you could see it or not. Okay, so that's what I'm gonna. I'll show you from time to time. So the first thing I'm doing is a light sketch. And when working outdoors, I usually use a little bit more thinner. Outdoors it evaporates pretty quickly, and so almost like a wash. Because usually when I paint outdoors, it's in one. It's alla prima. I have an hour and a half to do the whole painting. In the studio, you have much more time, but outside, I want to finish it in an hour and a half. And because the sun is moving, and so especially late in the day, the sun's going to move really quick like this. But and sometimes you have to come back to the same spot the next day in order to finish it. But I try to finish it in one session in about an hour and a half at the most. And so I want to be able to work into my paint so I don't get too thick with my sketch and my shadows. So let me just grab a brush and I'll show you what I mean. So before I do that, let me show you my palette real quick. So let me go through these real quick, and I'll talk about them when I'm mixing. I know, doing this on Zoom is not the easiest thing, but so I start off with a very cool green. This is Viridian green. I have ultramarine blue. I have burnt sienna, and I have alizarin crimson, and then I have over here a warm red, cadmium red light, yellow ochre, cad yellow light, and of course titanium white. So it's I don't have too many colors, but I can get pretty much anything I need with this palette. If I want to warm something up, I just go over to this side and I grab warmer colors. And over here are more cooler colors if I need to cool something down. But painting outside, blue is the one that gets used the most because there's blue everywhere. So I'm going to take a little bit of thinner, and I'm just going to take some blue. And what I'm going to do is just sketch just something real basic, kind of figure out where everything is. And the thing about sketching really lightly like this, if it's not working, I can wipe it off real quick and just continue. I can redo it. So I'm just going to make a few marks. I keep it loose. So if I have to change something, it's not a big deal to move something over. So we're going to be talking about values today, which are real important with painting. Even if your drawing is off, if the values are correct, the painting will hold together. Of course, when you're painting portraits and you're drawing those off, it's a bigger deal than if you're painting a landscape. I think that's why a lot of people gravitate towards landscapes. It gives you more room to improvise and change things around. And if something is off in drawing, it's not really noticeable. No one's going to know. The thing about what's good about portrait painting is that it teaches you to be real precise with your drawing. So, and very challenging. What's challenging about every subject has its challenge. Landscape have their challenge because you have so many things going on, and you have to figure out how to translate those objects into paint. And simplicity is the key. The best thing I recommend is for folks that want to paint landscape is to look at other artists that are really good and how they handle different objects. So going back to this, I'm going to continue with the drawing. So I start off very vague, and then I refine it. There's a field in front here that has some cows in it. And in fact, I even took a bunch of photos, because if I was going to use this, some of the cows, their poses look good and some don't look good. So I always recommend taking, especially if you have something like this with animals in it, or horses or something, take a bunch of photos, because sometimes the poses just won't work. And if you want to use those photos and the pose is awkward, it's going to look awkward in your painting. When we take something with a camera, we accept it because a camera took it. But if you draw it like that and paint it like that, someone will say, oh, you made a mistake. That just doesn't look right, even though you copied the photo. So you have to remember, a photograph is just a starting point. You can, the great thing about being a painter is that you can change whatever you don't like about it. You can put things in, you can take things out, you can move things around. You don't have to go exactly from the photo. Or even if you're painting from life, you can move things around. If you like, if there's a tree that's in the wrong spot and you want to move it over an inch, you can do that, or some rocks or boulders or whatever it may be, you can always move them. And so, for example, with these cows that are here, I can move them around to make a better composition. I could take them out. Like I said, like I'm looking at this particular photo, and I think there's one cow where the pose looks good and I could put them in, but the rest of them, you can't see their heads. They're chewing on the grass, and the grass is really high. So they're just not good poses. So anyway, I'm going to ignore that because that's not the center of my attention. The center of my attention is these other things. So you can see that I'm using blue, and I'm going to start putting in some shadow shapes and kind of zeroing in on some of these shapes. I want to make sure that I get the angles correct for the barn and the size that I want. Move this over a little bit. So you can move things around. So here we have something, I don't know what it is. Sometimes it really don't matter what it is. Just paint the shape. A real important thing to look at when you're painting anything, but particularly in landscapes, is using your brush. And if you can see this, holding your brush like this, when you're painting outside, you hold it up to the object and then you bring it across to see if your angles are correct. And also horizontal lines. I see folks make mistakes with this all the time. They don't look at where things line up. So a lot of times I'll hold my brush like this and I'll see what goes across here, where where things line up. So I'll go to the photo here, since I'm not painting from life, and I'll see that this right here is where this other building lines up. So it's important to, well, let me raise, in fact, I'm going to move this up more. Then I can change this, is to look at your horizontal lines to see where things line up. So here's this house. So I'm getting a little too close here, so I'm going to slide it over just a little bit, which is fine. So I'm just going to move this over just a little bit more. And so you can see how easy it is, since I haven't really made a commitment. I can move this over, the whole thing over an inch. So I'm not getting too close. I'm leaving a little bit more space over here. And if you want, I mean, I made this kind of large so you can see what I'm doing, but from the photograph, there's a lot more space on the side that I possibly can make this smaller to show more the landscape if I wanted to. And I think that's the thing you have to realize, is that you can change things that you see here. You don't have to paint exactly what's in the photo. So this is about my composition right here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put some color, these trees that are the background behind this. So I'm going to get some Meridian green. So I'm starting off with darker colors, and I'll put the lighter ones on top. So I'm just going to put a light wash here just to get this covered. Also, if you notice, I don't know if you can tell this on the screen, that I'm using a toned canvas. I really like, and I recommend using a toned canvas or board. The problem with white, first of all, painting outside, the white is really difficult to work on because it just reflects all the light. The other reason, though, even in the studio, a white canvas, it doesn't matter what color you put on there, it looks dark. It's just hard to get your values right. And even artists I know that start off with white canvas, they put a big wash on their canvas right from the get-go. So they may start off with white, but then they just cover it with a thin wash right from the, similar to what I'm doing now. So here we have trees, this green tree back here, and I'm using this to kind of shape these big shapes. And like I said, if I was outside, this would evaporate right away. So it wouldn't create a problem later on. It dries pretty quickly, and I can work over it, put thicker paint on. The reason I do this is, again, to shape the large shapes, also to get some values on there before I start with my main subject matter. The problem painting outside is that, for those of you that paint outside, you may have noticed this, that the paintings tend to come out dark. And you have to realize that when you're outside, everything looks lighter than it really is. And so we compensate by making things, when we put our paint down, it looks lighter than it really is. When we bring it inside, it looks dark. So you have to compensate for that and realize that, wait a second, I better be careful I don't make it too dark when I'm working outside. It's something that you have to learn how to deal with. That's why a lot of people will not paint under direct sun. They'll have an umbrella or something like that. So that helps with that problem. but sometimes you can't get in the shade, and sometimes you don't have an umbrella. I usually don't use an umbrella. I gave mine away. I'm tall and I never could get underneath of it. It always was in my way. So I try to be real careful when I'm painting outside, not to get too dark. Painting outside, for those of you that haven't done it, is just so much more exciting than painting in the studio. It's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of groups that schedule paint outs, so you can be out with other folks. I usually paint by myself, but you know, it's good to be with some other folks when you're painting outdoors, and and also you learn from them. So as you can see, I put in a kind of a wash back here, and I'm going to put in some more over here. There's some dark here. So if I was painting outside, I'd be working a lot faster than this, because like I said, I have to finish it in an hour. But let me just put in some washes here. So now I'm just going to mix some green for the front here. I hope you can see the color. This is just a yellow green. So what I did was I just added a little, I haven't used any white yet. I just added a little cadmium yellow light to my viridian green. Just to kind of get some color on the board. Now, the thing is, you have, when you're painting outside, you have to realize where the sun is going. So in this case, it was going behind me. So I knew that eventually this is going to get dark and it's going to work its way up. A lot of times the sun will be to the side, and there might be some shadows here that will grow or shrink. And you always have to be aware of that when you're painting outside, to realize that what's going to change and what you need to focus on. So you want to focus on things that are going to change the earliest. So things that I don't worry about, like the sky, I don't worry about that, because that's not going to change it a whole lot. I may put a wash up here real quick, but I really don't worry about the sky, because I can always put that in if this starts to get dark down here, and at least I'll have it finished, or the main subject finished, and I can put in the sky later. But you have to be aware of that. That's one thing you have to be aware of. Now, color. You know, the thing about painting is learning how to observe, not just see something, but really look at it and look at the way color changes, like on the barn, just on the barn itself. So when I look at the photo, I notice that the upper part here, I'll show it to you. You can see that. So the upper part here, whoops, I just lost it. Cancel. The upper part is darker than here. So there's less, the weather has worn that area up here just less. So you don't want to make this all the same. You want to look for variations in color, in temperature, in you know, some areas might be warmer, some areas may be cooler, and some of the color may be more intense. So it's more, usually down here, it's going to be more and more, because the rain hits down here more and bounces off the ground. So the bottom part's going to have a little bit different color than up here. And those are the kind of things you have to look for. You don't want to just paint something all the same color. You have to look for the nuance of color. Sometimes with photography, it's hard to see. It's better to see that in life. The camera just doesn't pick all of that up. That's another reason why working from life is better. I mean, it'll pick some of it up, but it just doesn't pick all that color change up. Especially like when I look at this photo, you know, the White House here, it's just so, the light was so strong that it just can't, it blows out the color. It just can't pick it up. So you don't see much of a nuance of color. But if I was standing there, I would see some changes in color. So, so what I'm going to do here is start with, I'm going to put in, I'm going to start with the red barn. So what I'm going to do is there's a shadow here. So let me just put the shadow real quick. And also the tin roof. If you can see it, the tin roof on the shadow side, look how blue that is right there. Can you see that? Look how blue that is. It's almost unbelievably blue, which is a real neat thing. You want to try to get anything like that into your painting. So you want to try to put in as much color as you can. Any opportunity to add color to a painting, you have to take advantage of. Even the green pasture in the front here, it's not all the same color. Here it's more of a lighter green. Here it almost gets like into the reddish violets, and it changes throughout the area. You know, look at, it's really warm. Look how warm this is here. So nothing is the same all over. And that's real important. This was, when did I take this? I guess this was in the fall. Yeah, I think this was November, if I remember. So I'm going to start right here. And I'm going to mix up some blue, a little bit of white, like that. And then I have a shadow over here. So you want to start with the shadows. Now notice over here, it's a lot darker shadow. And it's going to mix up dark red with some blue. And I'm going to put that in. And I'm going to put in some of the other shadows I see here. So this is still a little wet, but if I was outside, that would be dry and I wouldn't be picking up any of that because it was painted so thin. So I put that in, and then came over here. There's some dark over here. I don't know what it is, but I'm just going to put that in. Couple darks on the bottom here. Looks like some blocks from the foundation. So now I'm going to start with the color. So from now on in this painting, I'm going to focus on these two areas because these are the focal points. So this is what I want to work on. If I was working outside, I would really focus in on this stuff. I wouldn't really touch anything here till I got all of this in. So I'm going to use some cadmium red light, a little bit of blue. Let's try this. So first I'm going to block it in. I'm going to use vertical brush strokes to go with the planks. I think what's good about oil painting is you can paint over things, you can change things, move things. So like I said, I added just a little bit of blue and white to the cadmium red light. The lower part of painting has just a little bit more white in it. Maybe I'll add a little bit of yellow ochre in it in some areas. Let me just get this blocked in. Then I'll come back. So you want to show that it's weather beaten. Paint's chipping off some places. The thing about painting architecture, anything with architecture, think about what you're painting. You know, is it stone? Is it wood? You know, if you're painting a structure that's made out of stone, you know, you're going to have sharp edges. Edges are real important because that's another thing that draws a viewer into a particular area. So when you have sharp edges, or I should say, if you want someone to focus in on the area, make the edges sharp, because that will create a focal point. So this barn, I'm going to have sharp edges, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. I'm going to go over this with some thicker paint now and start changing some of these boards. So they're not all the same. Some are different. Some have a little bit more intense color. Some are more muted. So I'm just adjusting my color a little bit. Some might have a little bit more blue in them. Some might have a little bit more red. Now I'll put in also some of the dark cracks, just the major ones. You don't want to put in every little line. You want to create the illusion of detail. You want to make it look like there's a lot of detail. But I'm just going to pick out a few of these. And change let's see. So over here we have some really worn boards out that aren't really red at all. These subjects are fun to paint. Unfortunately, where this barn was located, there was really no place for me to set up and paint. It was along a highway, and I really couldn't set up on the side of a highway. It's too dangerous.
Where was this? Was this in Texas?
Yeah, yes, it was on the way to Waco off Highway 6.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
There's some wonderful barns up there.
Yeah, it's just that the highway where this particular spot was, it was just too busy. And I was on my way someplace, but I just couldn't. Unfortunately, some of the good spots you can't paint there. It's that's the frustrating thing is, and also a lot of things you need permission from the landowner. I mean, it's possible if I can get on the property and paint, but you don't want to do that unless you know the person or ask. Okay, so now I'm going to put in this color up here. And over here. So usually after I do this, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back with the dark around it, and I'm going to make really sharp edges. So I'm going to mix up now. I'm kind of getting away from using any thinner. Now I want to just use straight paint. So as you're painting, you're building up the paint. So I can go over this again and build it up some more. So I'm going to make a real sharp edge here and grab more paint. Now I'm just using Meridian green, a little burnt sienna, and some yellow ochre. So I'm making a sharp edge here. It's real important to get in these darks. If not, everything looks flat. So same with this side. I'm going to put in this dark. So I put my darks in, and then I come back and put the lights on top. So I have those darks in. So that'll make that come out more. You put these darks in here underneath this edge here. So these, like I said, I'll put the darks in and then I'll come back because there's a lot of light hitting the tree, but I'll come back and put on the lights. So let me show you what I mean. I can mix up some yellow ochre, a little bit of green and some white, and I could come back and put in some of these lights on top in the tree. So I already have my darks of the tree. It's a lot easier to put light on top of dark like that and come around, and also it changes. So here might be a little more yellow green. Up here it looks a little orangier. So I'll change my color and I'll go towards the oranges. Up here, add just a little more red. So I'll add on that like that. So now I'm going to go back. I'm going to put this dark back in. I kind of painted it out. And sometimes you have to go back over things. You'll paint something out. So I'll put that shadow there. A little bluer. Yeah, like that. Okay, so since I have this dark on my brush, there's some pickets here, various sizes. I'm going to add a little color into my shadow here. Just a little warm color like that. Also, there's another little outbuilding over here. So let me just sketch that in a little bit. So usually after I put in my lights, I go back to my darks and put those back in if I painted them out anywhere, made some changes, always correcting, making changes where you need to. And when you go back, you use thicker paint. Try to make, decisive brush strokes at this point. Like I said, I'm not going to use any more thinner. I'm just going to use paint. And the more you paint on your painting, the thicker the paint gets. So at the end, by the end, you're putting on really thick paint if you have to go over paint that's already on there. And I probably will. I'll probably go over some areas here and put more nuanced color in there. But right now, I'm just kind of getting it blocked in. What I did want to talk about also was, going back to values and creating focal points. I talked about, making edges sharper to bring the eye to a particular area. The other thing is color intensity. So if you want the viewer to focus on a certain area of the painting, you have more pure color. So in other words, when you go off to the side, you don't want pure color on the side, you'll gray it down. And that way the viewer goes to this, has no choice but to go to this barn and this house when I put this in. And that's what you want. You want to create, you want to control the viewer's attention, and using pure color or purer color will do that. So sharp edges, more pure color. And the other thing is contrast. So I'm creating contrast here. The viewer's attention is going to go through the contrast. So that's one thing that I've noticed with folks when I'm doing these workshops is they usually don't have enough contrast. Their paintings are all in the middle value scale, say 4, 5, and 6. They're never up, to 9 or down to 1 or whatever. They're always right in the middle. And you have to have that full range of values where, especially outside, where you're almost to pure white. You have to remember that nature is a lot stronger. The light is a lot stronger than what we have with our paint. So we have to create the illusion of light. So painting is just an illusion. we're creating an illusion of light, shadow, of depth, and we use our values and color to do that. So you want to have stronger values here in the front, more contrast in this area to bring this forward. Back here, less. Of course, this is pretty linear composition, but if it showed more mountains or whatever, or if it was from a higher vantage point where you're looking away, back here, anything back here, the values would be closer together. That creates a sense of distance. So that's real important to think about with your painting. Even if you're painting a still life and you have flowers that are in the front part of the painting, they're going to have more contrast, more color, sharper edges than the ones that are in the back. So it's not just landscape painting. What I'm talking about today is for any type of painting. I use all these things for whatever I'm painting. I have to think about what's closer to me, what's further away, what do I want the viewer to focus on. And to do that, I have to use edges, color, values. So these are all real important things. I hope some of you are jotting this down, because it's more about what I'm saying today, since we're not, in the studio working together. It's more about what I'm saying than what I'm doing. These are all real important things to know and keep in your mind. But the problem is, I notice with folks, they think they're using the full range of values, but really they're not. That's why it's important to have an instructor, because if not, you keep making the same mistakes over and over again, and you don't even realize it. You don't know, well, why isn't this working? I have no idea. Why isn't this working? And usually it's because of the values. You have the wrong values, or maybe you don't have the right edges or contrast. So that being said, I'm going to move on to my white country house over here, which is real intense, and I'm going to make it real intense. So you just correct the drawing a little bit. This peak is just a little less pitched. Move this over a little bit. Going to put in some dark around the trees back here. Okay, so since I'm painting white, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe off some of this paint so I don't get it mixed in with my white. If I was outside, it probably would be dry. So I usually save a brush for whites. I use a really clean brush, brand new brush. And if I'm painting something like this, I used to like to paint along the coast and paint the shrimp boats and stuff like that. And I still go. I went a few months ago and painted Galveston. And I always have a real clean brush for painting the whites. I need to get a brush. Let's see. Okay. Thought I had another brush here. So now it's a warm light. It's late in the afternoon. So I'm going to take white, just a touch of yellow ochre. Dealing with white, you have to be real careful because you get it dirty so easy. So white with just a touch yellow ochre. It's a very warm light. So I'm just simplifying these shapes. I will put in any detail on afterwards. So I put a brush down. I make a brush stroke. Get more paint. So when working with white, you don't want to get it dirty. Be real careful with it. Again, the idea here is to create the contrast. And like I said, a lot of folks, when they're painting, they think they have the contrast, but they really don't. And then they wonder why, you know, they didn't get that ribbon. You know, you want to have a painting that stands out. And contrast is one way to do that. Getting the right values. I mean, not every painting has a lot of contrast. Not every subject, I should say, has a lot of contrast. And if it doesn't have a lot of contrast, then there needs to be another element to it that, you know, I guess what I tell people is to ask yourself, well, why am I painting this? What is it I want to bring out in this painting? Why do I like it? And if you can't answer those questions, then why are you painting it? There has to be a reason to paint something. There has to be something about that subject that you like, that you want to bring out. And usually I try to point those things out to myself. Okay, this is what I want to bring out in this painting. This is what I'm excited about. Okay, so I put that in very simply. Now I'm going to put in this tin roof. That's kind of cool back here. Has a tree in front of it. There's also some things here. I'm not quite sure what it is. Looks almost like a chute. I think it is for cattle. Oh no, it's a trailer. It's a cattle trailer that's parked here. I didn't know what it was. But you can barely tell what it is. Doesn't matter. It's just shapes and color. there's some shadow over here on the side of this building from a tree. Kind of add some color. This shadow under this eave is interesting because it's not really cool. It has like yellow in it. And a lot of times a white object that's warm will reflect yellow into the shadow. So I'm going to paint that a yellowish green color. And there's a chimney up here with light hitting it. It's kind of a soft orange color. Just put that in like that. Again, I'm going to use the background to shape it like I did with the barn. I'm going to sharpen up the roof. So like this, I can sharpen these edges like that. See, I can get it real sharp. Instead of trying to make it sharp when I'm painting this in, I can come with the background. Same with right here. Can make that sharp like that. You're always checking your drawing and making corrections. See, I had to fix that. I didn't come out far enough with that eave. See how it really pops out? Now here, even with this thing, is another, looks like a porch. And it's in the shadow. And the white is kind of a bluish tone. You put that in. It's a little bit of warm color reflecting into it. Now, again, I'm going to use the background. I hope everyone hasn't fallen asleep yet.
Oh no, we were just, there's so much information and it's mesmerizing watching you paint and how you put it on canvas.
Well, I'm trying to give you a lot of information. I know sometimes demos can be like watching grass grow. So I'm trying to give you a lot of information that you can write down and use in your own paintings. This is all stuff that is real important to have a successful painting. And like I was saying, it's not just the landscape. It doesn't matter what I'm painting, I'm doing it the same way. So now you can see I have my focal point. They're very simple. There's nothing developed yet, but already I have strong values, and it'll catch your attention and jump out. So usually at this point, I'll probably put in some of the sky, because I need to, in order for me to finish this, the top of the trees and everything, I have to have the sky in. So I'll put in some of the sky. I have all this, even if the light changes, even if this was to grow, I would still be okay, because these shadows, they may grow and come down. But I have enough information here that really I just need to put in some detail and I'll be done. But you want to get in these big things and not change them. So you don't want to change you don't want to chase the light. Once you put it down, leave it that way. Don't keep changing. I see people do that, and they end up with a big mess. So if I start fiddling with this, I would mess this white up, and I would mess this up. So I'm going to leave it that way. I mean, there are occasions when something is better. You say, oh, wow, I like that better. It's better now than it was before. And in that case, you might want to change it. And what I usually do is I'll use a palette knife. If I had to change something here, I use a palette knife and try to pick up some of the paint and redo it. But you have to paint with thick paint, and you have to be real careful. So yeah, that's where we are with that. Let me put in, I have my dark darts. And so I can, since I have this white here, let me put this in over here. There's some building or something here, which I really like because it balances this out. So it really is a good composition. So I'm just going to put in some of this light back here. That's hitting, looks like another outbuilding behind the barn that I think is attached to this building. So real clean brush strokes. No, don't go like this. My teachers say lick. Don't lick the painting, especially when you're painting, like I said, architecture. Try to get real decisive brush strokes to create the sense of wood, of hard, of strong edges. It's a lot better to make one brush stroke, take your time with it, than make 10 brush strokes trying to fix something. And you have to remember that you can mix color on your canvas as well as you can on your palette. So if you go off on a color, so say I want to go more blue on that, I'm going to pick up some blue and white and go over it and just adjust that color a little bit like that. So I'm mixing on my painting. So you don't have to mix a completely new color. You just have to adjust what you have here. I mean, I know that takes practice to learn what you need to do to add to a color to change it. There's really no shortcut in painting. It's a journey. I know you all hear that, but it really is. And it's just so enjoyable to get out on a beautiful day and paint. I don't know if your group does paint outs, but there's a couple Texas-based organizations that go out and paint. One is OPS, which is it's more of a Dallas base, but like I know they have a paint out coming up in Galveston. And what's nice about it is that you're with a group of people if you feel uncomfortable about painting by yourself outside. That way you can meet with other folks that enjoy painting and go out and paint instead of being stuck inside. And a lot of things you can paint from your car too. It's not like you have to go hiking somewhere. So now I'm just adding shadows that are on the wall to this little outbuilding here behind the fence. Just playing with some color. And again, I'm using thicker paint now. If I don't use thick paint, I'll pick up what's underneath. And if I don't want to pick up what's underneath, I need to make the paint thicker. So if you see a color, put it on. Don't worry about it. You can always adjust it if it's too strong or if it doesn't fit. So now color mixing is another thing I want to talk about. And a lot of folks end up with gray or mud, and they don't know why. They don't know how they did it. They probably mixed too many colors together, and the colors cancel each other out. So you have to remember, with whatever you're painting, you have to have a dominant color. So when you look at something, say, okay, what color is that? You have to come up with a color. Is it red? Is it yellow? Is it blue? Or is it a secondary color? Violet, green, or what is it? Orange? And if you can't determine the color, that means it's a gray and it's in the violet family. And I remember when I was learning, that was really big hint a good hint. It's like, if you don't know what color it is, make it violet. And so a lot of times you look at something and say, I don't know what color that is. That means it's in the gray family, it's a violet. So make it violet. Now, once you determine the color, you have to determine the intensity of the color. So if it is a violet, well, how purple is it? Is it very neutral? Well, then you have to add the complementary color. So if it's a very neutral violet, let me show you what I'm talking about, because this is something that's real important. And I don't know if teachers talk about this, but so say you have a purple here. This purple has a little bit of white in it, so you can see it. Now, if I want to make that more neutral, I add some ochre to it. And so I can make it more neutral like that. Just slightly. I don't even know if the camera picks it up. But I'm going to add more ochre to it. And I can even make it more neutral. So it's starting to go towards the yellow. The thing about mixing color like this is that you get good harmonies. So say I want to go more towards the ochre. If I'm painting this object and it warms up, I can add more ochre to it. And so I'm getting away from violet. I'm going all the way towards the yellows now. Here's more ochre. And I just keep going towards the yellows. So you could be painting an object that's this color, and maybe it has some reflected light in it or whatever, and using the complementary color, you can harmonize your painting by having one dominant color and working around that color. So in other words, everything is with the primary colors. So even the violet. So this is a neutral violet. Well, violet or purple, whatever you prefer, violet can be a reddish violet or a bluish violet. And how blue it is or how red it is, makes a difference. So let me mix up some more color and I'll show you what I mean. So I made violet here, but now I added more blue to it. And here's even more blue. So I'm taking that same color and I'm going towards the blues. And this all harmonized together, but I can also go more towards the reds if I want. And add just more red to it and go towards the reds. So it's a way of harmonizing color. So I'm staying with the basic color, but I'm adjusting it, either going more in one direction or more in another direction. So you know, when something is in the violet, you'd say, well, is that a neutral, or is it cool, or is it warm? You know, which way is it going? And that same object that you're painting, you know, maybe you can go in a more neutral color or even more to the complementary color. So complementary colors are real important when you're working in a painting, because you can adjust things just very slightly and make things more interesting. So if you look at paintings that you really like, say, wow, that's something else. Look at how the artist maybe adjusted the color a little bit. So it's not the same all over. So in other words, even with this red barn, I could start going into into maybe the bluish reds, which are violets. Let me see if I could show you that. Let me clean my brush. Hold on just 1 second. After a while, my palette starts to get a little dirty, and I just have to stop and clean it off so I don't get dirty colors. But you know, if you have time, play with your color. You know, take some, I use alizarin crimson because it's a real transparent red. It works real nice with violets. So, you know, take your violets and try mixing different violets together, because you can use them in your painting. You know, over here, I use mostly blue in here, but I can add to this color later on. I can adjust it just a little bit. And like in here, I could really adjust all of this. That needs more adjusting because that's a focal point. But so what you want to end up with is a lot of color, but they all have to go together. And the way they all go together is having a dominant color. In this case, it's red, with just nuance, just a little change here and there throughout the area to make it more interesting.
William, we have about 30 minutes
Oh, okay.
left in the demo.
All right. Are you telling me I need to move along faster?
Oh, no, I was just, no, just giving you a heads up.
Okay. I wasn't sure how far. I figure I'd just keep going until we ran out of time. I'm just trying to give you as much information as I can in the time that we have. So now let me show you what I'm talking about over here, because we laid this in earlier. And now I'm going to go back with thicker color. Clean my brush out. I hope there's some people left on there. So what I'm going to do is, like I was saying, I'm going to go, red is going to dominate, but I'm going to add just a little bit of blue to create more interest in some of these boards, to show them looking a little bit more weathered, so they're not too warm. So I'm going to take some cadmium light, but I'm going to take a little bit of blue. And add it into some of these boards. I'm going to pick out some. And see this, making decisive brush strokes like this gives the illusion of detail. little more paint. Okay, I just had to put more paint out. So I'm just going over a few areas with more paint. Varying the color a little bit. Now I'm still using the red and blue, but now I'm going to take just a little bit more blue. So again, I'm kind of in the violet family. Let's go lighter though. I need to go lighter. The other thing I wanted to mention is when you're working in the light and you're working with white, you have to understand that white is a cool color. So when you mix white with a color, it's going to cool it down. And that's real important to know that it's going to be cool. So blue will cool it down, and adding white to it will cool it down. So I'm just varying the color a little bit. I don't know if y'all can see that. So I'm trying to make this just a little more interesting and instead of just one straight color. Now, back here, what's nice about back here is there's little bits of color. I don't really know what it is, but I'm just going to put the color in. Could be a fence, something. I don't know what it is, which is nice because it just sometimes you have these little areas that have just some stuff. It could be just farm implements or just stuff that they threw back there, but it creates some color and interest, even if you don't know what it is. And you don't have to draw out everything. You know, sometimes it really doesn't matter what it is. You don't have to, the viewer doesn't have to be able to identify it. It's just color. You can use it as just a way to put color in the painting. So up here we have some or over here rather, we have some warm color. I don't know what it is, weeds, some tall weeds or something, some kind of brush. Just put that in. Like that. Okay, so now let me go back to the foreground, since I got that all blocked in, and kind of put some light, some color in here. So now, of course, I'm using thicker paint. I'm using green with a little bit of yellow in it. And also a lighter color. It's pretty light here. Okay, I need to add more color and more paint here. I'm using up all my paint. So, let's see. Sorry, I put my paint out. So as I go away from the mid, away from here and down, I'm going to get a little darker, maybe more neutral in color, and change it up a little bit. Actually, this brush is too soft for this. I usually use a bristle brush for large areas like this. This brush is real soft, so it's hard to apply thick paint. It's good. So that's why, you know, going back to materials, having a variety of brushes is important. So I have soft brushes like this one, that this is just a Langnickel brush. That's real good for, especially laying on paint onto wet surfaces. But for areas like this, like big areas where we're trying to lay on paint, it just is not very good for that. It's just too soft. It's better, it works good for a wash. So I'll use like a Robert Simmons bristle brush for laying on thicker areas. Like that. So now, let me put in some of the sky. So then I have the whole painting covered. And really, this should be done in about a half an hour. You should have the whole painting covered in about a half an hour. That way you can delve into the little nuances of color and put in any detail and finishing touches that you want to do. So let me put in some color up here. So I want to bring this down into the tree because I have to bring the tree up into the into the sky. So that's why a lot of artists start off with this, they put the sky in right away in the beginning. So there's another thing, an important thing we talk about with values and trees and sky is that the sky that you see through the trees, you want to be careful you don't make that too light. You want to keep it a lot darker than what you think it is. So I'm going to soften up these edges, get the basic shape like that. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the trees because I don't have time to do everything. A couple things I want to show you here because I know we're running out of time is that I put the basic dark in and now I need to put the lights on top. So I talked a little bit about it. So what I usually do is I'll put the medium lights on there. So not the highest lights. Here I went straight to the highest lights with this white. But the trees, basically, you know, these live oaks or these oaks are darker color. So I'm going to go with a medium light. So there's some orange there, where some of the leaves have changed. Maybe it's not a live oak, it's probably a water oak or something. And I'm going to start putting in some of these shapes like that, with some cadmium red light and some cadmium yellow light and a little bit of white. So I'll pick up some of those orange colors that are up here and I'll start working in over the sky. So there's a few spots where it goes over the sky. That's why a lot of times, like I said, people put in the sky really early on because they're going to work over it. So you have different shapes here. You want to put in. I'm going to come up a little bit higher here. The other thing that I wanted to show you, or the reason I wanted to show you this, is because you're going to come back with some of the sky color, but you're going to make it darker. And so you're going to come back with some of the sky, because color is affected by what's around it. So you don't want to make these too light. So you're going to pick out some of these areas where light's coming through, kind of shape it a little bit like that. But you don't want to get this value in here. You want this to be darker than that. The other thing I want to show you when it comes to color is that I probably will, like especially on this side, I'll probably take a little bit of the red from here and put it into my tree to make it harmonize. Just add a little red. It's very slight, not real noticeable. And I don't know if you can even notice it on the video. But I just put a little bit of red in there. Of course, we have orange because it's fall. So there's some orange in here. So I have the dark underneath. Sometimes, like I said, you have to go back and forth, dark to light, dark to light. So sometimes when you're working into it, you have to go back to your darks and you know, add some of these shapes back in. With trees, it's better to keep it real simple. So I'll soften up some of these shapes. And then later on, I will come back and put in my lightest lights that are in the tree. So I could come back and just put in a few lights, maybe that are on the edge here that are get caught in the tree, like that. So I have my dark, my middle value, and my highest lights. So if you can divide every area into 3 basic values, and also it holds it together, it simplifies it. That's what you want to do. Up here, it's really light. You want to be careful to keep it clean.
We have about 10 minutes, William.
All right. So here, this is cooler. Again, it's about observing temperature and the way things change. Whatever this tree back here is not an orangey color. It's more of it's more green. Even has a little bit more blue in it. So I'm going to add a little bit of blue to this, which works out well because it's on the edge of my painting. It's set, the blue pushes it back. Some softer edges here, things coming up. Actually, this bigger brush works better, I think. It's softer. Oh, the sun came out. Looked like it was going to rain earlier. So just softening it up. Like that. And but at least I got to show you the basic block in the detail. And I mean, that's not hard to do. It's you know, it depends how much detail you want to put in the painting. That's up to the artist. I ask myself, is this particular detail going to help the painting, or is it going to make the painting worse, or is it just going to change it? So not necessarily better or worse, it's just different. And so you have to look at those things before you put them on and figure out, well, do I want to put this in? Is it really going to add to the painting? So like over here is a window. I like the light hitting the white trim. You know, so something like that. I don't even call that detail. It's just stuff that's in the painting. There's some kind of light here. I don't know if it's a downspout or what it is, or tin. You know, there's little dabs of color here and there. Like I said earlier, I don't even know what they are, and it really doesn't matter what it is. It will create interest. I look for every little thing that's going to create interest to a painting. Over here on the house, the windows, it looks, they have blinds on them. So, so they're pretty light. So I'm going to look where it is. The top of the window lines up with the eave here. It's in the middle. Like that. Put that in. You almost can't see them in the photo. And then there's another one directly underneath. That lines up with this. Actually, they're longer. Yeah, a little bit more ochre.
Hi, Bill. Before everyone slips away, I wanted to make sure we welcomed Nancy Viola, our Best of Show winner. She joined us here shortly ago, and we showed your painting of koi, and was it oil or acrylic? Nancy, unmute yourself. Nancy.
Is there anyone out there?
Yeah, yes,
I was
there
muted.
are.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Also, it's oil.
It's an oil. And that was 4 by 6 feet. There's a large painting.
Yes.
It
Yes.
was
It's
very
very
nice.
large. Thank
And
you
I'll
so
say-
much.
You're welcome. The check is in the mail.
Wow. My husband will be so excited.
Husbands are always happy when they see that check in the mail.
Yeah.
I think we lost her again.
Well, I'm sorry. I wasn't here earlier. I was just checking email and thought, oh my goodness. So I just popped in. But I'm having a little Wi-Fi trouble, so sorry about that.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And we're going to be finishing up here in just a moment.
Yeah, I'm pretty much done. I don't know. I gave you all a lot of information to think about. Hopefully you took notes and you got something out of this talk we had this morning.
This has been fabulous. And will you, when you finish your painting, will you send us a picture of it?
I'm probably not going to finish it.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm not going to finish it. Like I said, usually something like this I would paint from life, and it's just I don't get too excited doing it from photograph. It's good. It's a good exercise and everything, but yeah, I probably won't finish it.
And if it's all right with you, we'll put a recording of the demo on our website so that we can refer back to.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But I want to thank you very much for joining us today. We got a lot of information out of this, and that can use not only in oils, but with any of our paintings and artwork.
Yes, like I said, what I gave you today is good for whatever subject matter you're painting.
Right.
And style.
And medium. So yeah, it's we really do appreciate your time.
It was wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And surprisingly accurate and fast. So
Wow. Yeah.
And Bill, I mean, William, we had someone from Australia even watching today.
Well, good.
So you were global.
that's exciting.
So thank you
Well,
again.
thank you for having me.
Can you move your camera over closer to the picture so we can see how it looks close up?
I'll try. Does that help?
Oh, that does.
Of it.
That's it's amazing. Thank you very
Well,
much.
I hope you all enjoyed it.